Hi there, and welcome to this module focused on developing academic language and explicit instruction of vocabulary words. I am Shelby Skonis, and it is my honor to guide you through thinking deeply about just these two elements of vocabulary instruction. You will have a facilitator who is facilitating this session and will sometimes stop the video and prompt you to do something like read an article or watch a video or just reflect on the content that has been presented so far. So again, I'm Shelby Skonis, and I hope you enjoy your time with this module. There are a couple of learning intentions for our time together. One is that you will deepen your understanding of evidence-based instructional practices that support the development of academic language skills. And another is that you will deepen your understanding of the attributes of effective explicit vocabulary instruction. One of the reasons that we are spending time focused on this topic today is because of the research that we have available to us. And this one piece of research is really quite critical to pay attention to as teachers of primary age students. Vocabulary in kindergarten and first grade is a significant predictor of reading comprehension in the middle and the secondary grades. Alrighty, before we get busy into our content, I'd like you to turn to page 2 of your participant handout. And there I have for you a document to record your thoughts on. I'd like you to think about, where do you feel the most confident in delivering vocabulary instruction to your students? And I'd also like you to consider what aspect of vocabulary instruction is a bit of a challenge. And go ahead and take a couple of quiet minutes and jot a few notes to yourself, and we'll get back to this in just a few minutes. I'd like to spend a brief amount of time talking about the simple view of reading. This is a formula demonstrating the widely accepted view that reading has two basic components: word recognition or decoding, and language comprehension. The simple view formula has been supported and validated by a number of research studies over many years. The simple view formula is decoding, or D, times language comprehension, or LC, equals reading comprehension, or RC. The simple view formula and supporting studies show that a student's reading comprehension score can be predicted if decoding skills and language comprehension abilities are known. Notice that D and LC are not added together to predict RC. They are multiplied. In the simple view formula, the values of D and LC must be between 0 and 1, or 0% and 100%. A score of 0 means no skill or ability at all, and 1 indicates perfection or mastery. A student with excellent decoding skills and strong language comprehension in the subject area of the text will achieve a strong reading comprehension score. The simple view shows that for a student with both D and LC equal to 100%, the reading comprehension score will be 100%. Reading comprehension scores will not be an average of decoding skills and language comprehension. When one variable is strong, reading comprehension will be equal to the weaker variable. For example, a student with excellent decoding skills will achieve reading comprehension equal to his language comprehension skills in the subject area being tested. The simple view shows that for a student with D equal to 100%, the RC score will be equal to the LC score. For instance, a student with a D score of 100% and an LC score of 50% will have a reading comprehension score of 50%. Any improvement in this student's language comprehension skills will result in equal improvement in reading comprehension. Improving the LC score to 70% will result in a concurrent increase in reading comprehension to 70%. And the same applies if I had switched the percentages to decoding. Let's take a closer look at D, or decoding, within the simple view of reading. It is the ability of the student to sound out or decode the written words using the principles of phonics. It involves an understanding of print concepts, being phonologically aware, phonics and word recognition, word knowledge, a high vocabulary, and fluency, or reading at a sufficient rate with accuracy and expression in text. And language comprehension is the ability to make sense of the language we hear and the language that we read. The skills involved under language comprehension are academic language skills. They are inferential language skills, literal comprehension skills, narrative language skills, academic vocabulary, and background knowledge. And for today's session, we will be focusing on inferential and narrative language skills and academic vocabulary. This session today was designed to take into account the information presented in the IES practice guide titled Foundational Skills to Support Reading for Understanding in Kindergarten through 3rd grade. A practice guide is a publication that presents recommendations for educators to address challenges in their classrooms and schools. They are based on reviews of research, the experiences of practitioners, and the expert opinions of a panel of nationally recognized experts. This practice guide provides 4 recommendations for teaching foundational reading skills to students in kindergarten through 3rd grade. Each recommendation includes implementation steps and solutions for common obstacles. The recommendations also summarize and rate supporting evidence. This guide is geared towards teachers, administrators, and any educator who wants to improve their students' foundational reading skills, and is a companion to the practice guide titled Improving Reading Comprehension in Kindergarten through 3rd grade. Recommendation 1 within this IES practice guide is teach students academic language skills, including the use of inferential and narrative language and vocabulary knowledge. And that is the recommendation that we will focus on in the first part of this module. This is a wonderful graphic that shows us just how the What Works Clearinghouse and the IES practice guides can be of help to teachers. The practice guides provide us with the latest research evidence available, and they combine expert panel knowledge with rigorous research findings. They also offer specific recommendations to address challenges that we face in our classrooms. Each practice guide includes the following: a summary of the existing research on a key topic, a discussion of practices that are supported by research and evidence, key examples to demonstrate the concepts discussed, definitions of key terms and concepts, specific recommendations for how to address educational issues, and a system of evidence levels for each recommendation. Recommendation 1 in the IES practice guide is teach students academic language skills, including the use of inferential and narrative language and vocabulary knowledge. Students who enter kindergarten with limited academic language skills typically lag behind their peers in reading. Academic language skills enable students to understand the formal structures and words found in books and school. Academic language includes words and structures that are common across subjects and unique to individual subjects. While students typically develop social language skills naturally, those used to communicate informally with family and friends, academic language skills usually require instruction. By guiding students to develop their academic language skills, teachers can mitigate some of the challenges that students encounter when learning to comprehend text. Students of all ages and text reading abilities need to engage in activities that intentionally develop academic language skills. Inferential language instruction supports students' ability to think analytically and to understand text that connects ideas from multiple contexts. Students with more advanced narrative language skills can follow increasingly intricate series of events such as stories, historical events, phenom in nature, and instructions. The panel on the IES Practice Guide encourages teachers to use a variety of texts, including informational texts, during activities involving academic language skills. For our purposes today, I have included just recommendation 1 in your participant handout, and that is found on pages 3 through 10 in your participant handout. I'd like you to turn to page 11 in your participant handout and just take a couple of quiet minutes to reflect on what you currently do to teach students academic language skills. So you'll write a couple of notes to yourself, what occurs in your current instructional practice, and then be ready to discuss with colleagues. Let's get a little more precise with recommendation 1. Academic language is a critical component of oral language. Academic language skills include the following abilities: articulating ideas beyond the immediate context, which is inferential language; clearly relating a series of events, both fictional and non-fictional, which is narrative language; and comprehending and using a wide range of academic vocabulary and grammatical structures. And this will be the focus of part of this module. As stated just a few moments ago, academic language skills typically require instruction. And academic language is the formal communication structure and the words that are common in books and at school. And then under that are the skills required to have knowledge of academic language. These skills enable students to use and comprehend academic language. And these skills are inferential language skills, narrative language skills, and academic vocabulary knowledge. Each recommendation in an IES practice guide is supported with guidance for how to carry out that recommendation in classroom practice. So the very first bit of guidance for recommendation 1 is to engage students in conversations that support the use and comprehension of inferential language. Develop students' inferential language, such as predicting, problem solving, hypothesizing, or contrasting, with conversations before, during, and after read-alouds or other activities. These conversations should engage students in higher level thinking that encourages using inferential language. Teachers should use open-ended questions to challenge students to think about the messages in both narrative and informational texts, and how those messages apply to the world around them by connecting events to their own lives, hypothesizing causal relationships, or solving problems. As students progress, ask increasingly complex questions, such as why an author used a certain metaphor, to encourage them to think critically, and most important, use the inferential language. A very brief definition of inferential language is that it is language that focuses on topics removed from the here and now. Here are inferential language discussion prompts that could be utilized in informational text and narrative text. Certainly not an exhaustive list of prompts, but this gives you a good idea. Here are some suggested ways in which to build inferential language in kindergarten through third grade students. Develop students' ability to predict, problem solve, hypothesize, or contrast with conversations before, during, and after read-alouds. Use open-ended questions to really challenge students to think about the messages in both narrative and informational text, and then how those messages apply to the world around them by connecting events to their own lives, hypothesizing causal relationships, or solving problems. Teachers should always first model how to provide reasoned answers that fully address the questions and illustrate critical thinking. Prompt students to include additional detail, to connect the targeted idea and the response, and to answer with general statements that are not tied to the specific characters, events, or facts presented in the text. Now we're going to watch an example of this in classroom instruction. This video depicts students in a kindergarten and first grade classroom, and we are going to see a read aloud and a discussion. This is whole class. There are 16 students, and what we will be observing are questions that facilitate discussion and really elicit critical thinking from the students. For this task, you'll need to have page 12 in your participant handout ready. This is a document for you to organize your thoughts related to the video that we will be watching. On the left-hand side of the document, you'll see specific actions that the teacher takes. And on the right-hand side of the document, I would like for you to find specific examples in the video that match that prompt on the left. You'll have a few minutes while watching the video to record, and then after the video, a few minutes to complete your thoughts, and then you will share with colleagues. Now you'll watch the video, and the facilitator will let you know the best way to access that video. Go ahead and take a couple of minutes to finish up your thoughts regarding your observations of the video, and then the facilitator will give you just a few minutes to be able to discuss with colleagues. Here are some things I hope you noticed. The teacher modeled how to provide reasoned answers through the discussion. She drew more information from students who provided a pretty limited response. She asked open-ended questions, and she prompted students to add additional details to their answers. Okay, we're going to watch another video now. This is in a third grade classroom, and again, this is whole class instruction. There are 17 students. We are going to watch another read aloud and discussion, and the teacher is focused on questions to facilitate discussion and again, elicit critical thinking. For this observation, you'll need page 13 in your participant handout. And similar format, you will be looking for instances of the teacher taking some specific actions, and then you'll be looking for those actions in the video and noting what you saw and even when you saw it if possible. All right, let's get ready to watch this second video. Again, listen to your facilitator for directions on how to access this video. Go ahead, feel free, take a few moments to think through the aspects of this document that I asked you to be observing for, and then be ready to discuss with colleagues. And similar to the first video, I hope you notice these things. Through the discussion, the teacher elicited more information from students who provided a pretty limited response. She did ask open-ended questions, and she prompted students to answer in complete sentences. She also prompted students to add additional details to their responses. Okay, as we bring a close to the concept of helping our students develop inferential language, I'd like you to reflect on that section of this module. You'll need page 11 in your participant handout, and I have provided a place for you to record your thinking related to these questions. Identify ideas confirmed for you related to engaging students in conversations about topics beyond their immediate context, which is inferential language. So making predictions, reasoning, problem solving. Go ahead and identify the information that was confirmed for you. And then I'd like you to brainstorm ideas about what strategies you would add or change to develop students' inferential language in your classroom. And think about what potential data you might use to determine whether the additions or changes you might be likely to make would result in improved student learning. You'll have a couple of minutes to record your thinking and reflect on that section, and then be ready to discuss with colleagues in just a few minutes. So the second bit of guidance for carrying out the recommendation 1 in the IES practice guide is to explicitly engage students in developing narrative language skills. The practice guide states that it is important for beginning readers to develop narrative language skills to understand text and engage in discussions that extend across multiple sentences. Narrative language refers to creating or understanding a fictional or real account of an experience or occurrence, such as how a caterpillar becomes a butterfly. Narrative language skills include the ability to organize information in a logical sequence, as well as connect that information using appropriate complex grammatical structures. Students can develop narrative language skills before and while they master basic text reading skills. Narrative language skills include connecting story grammar and then using grammatical and linguistic structures. They include the ability to organize information in a logical sequence and then connect that information using those complex grammatical structures. We really support the development of narrative language through rich discussion and asking students very intentional questions to develop those complex grammatical structures. This example on the screen presents several complex grammatical structures that the panel recommends teaching to students in kindergarten through 3rd grade. Teachers are encouraged to identify and teach additional complex grammatical structures if students are ready. The specific elements of narrative language include components of story grammar, character, setting, plot, etc., and components of linguistic structure. Along with complex grammatical structures, elements of linguistic structure and elements of story grammar contribute to both oral and reading comprehension. They are common deficits among K through 3 students with below average oral language abilities, but are not frequently addressed explicitly in any reading instruction. So I'll give you a few moments to take a look at the information on the screen. To develop narrative language in kindergarten through 3rd grade, initially, teachers might need to prompt students to use a given narrative language structure and provide additional modeling. As students become more comfortable with the given element, they will require fewer prompts and modeling and will begin using the narrative structure or elements independently. Some elements and structures will present more challenges to students than others. So teach beginning readers complex grammatical structures and key elements of narrative language during whole class and small group lessons. Introduce students to each new element or structure, model how to use the element to connect and expand ideas, and then provide continued opportunities for students to practice and apply using the new elements. Support students' use by scaffolding their responses, and engage students in the use of narrative language through activities that ask them to predict or summarize a story or factual information, or develop detailed descriptions. Now we'll watch a series of videos which demonstrate the development of narrative language skills for students. We'll first watch a kindergarten video that is whole group instruction, and the students are working on prediction. And then we will watch a first grade video, again, whole group instruction. The students are being guided through a lesson on retelling. And then finally, we will end our series by watching a third grade classroom, whole class, where the students are working on the skill of cause and effect. As you watch this video, please have page 15 in your participant handout ready so that you can make notes about observations related to the skill of prediction. And here's the video, and your facilitator will let you know the very best way to access this for viewing. Great job. You'll be placed in a small group now to discuss your findings and your observations related to that video for just a few minutes. Here are some things that I hope you noticed when you watched that video. The students developed narrative language skills by making predictions about a story read aloud by the teacher. The lesson was taught explicitly. The teacher modeled, she provided examples of how to make predictions, and she provided guided practice for students to make their own predictions. The teacher facilitated a whole group discussion and provided opportunities for students to discuss in pairs. And the teacher scaffolded student responses by prompting them to use evidence from the text to support their predictions. For this video, you'll need to have page 16 in your participant handout ready, and you'll make observations while watching this lesson focused on building students' narrative language through the skill of retelling. Let's watch the video. Now you'll have a few minutes again to discuss with a colleague to share your observations while watching that video focused on developing narrative language through a retell experience. And here's what I hope you talked about. Students developed narrative language skills by retelling information about a butterfly's life cycle from an article. The teacher did facilitate a whole group discussion, and she provided opportunities for students to discuss in pairs. She scaffolded the instruction by using prompts. What happened first? What can you add to that? And she also scaffolded instruction by providing a graphic organizer to help students organize the information from the article in a logical sequence. The teacher also prompted students to connect their responses to events in the article. She encouraged students to use the text and trigger words, example, first, next, to sequence a butterfly's life in logical order. All right, we are getting ready to watch the very last video in this series that has been demonstrating how to develop narrative language skills. This time you'll need page 17 in your participant handout. And we are going to watch a third grade group of kids who are receiving instruction in a cause and effect lesson, but also at the same time, the teacher is developing their narrative language skills. And here's the video. Okay, once again, you'll have a few moments to discuss your observations with a very small group of colleagues. Enjoy. Here are some things you may have discussed. Students developed narrative language skills by finding the cause and effect in an article about backpacks. The teacher ensured student learning by teaching the lesson explicitly. She provided examples of cause and effect, taught clue words to look for cause and effect, and provided guided and independent practice. She also modeled and provided guided practice on how to color code text to analyze it for cause and effect. The teacher facilitated a whole group discussion as well as provided opportunities for students to talk in pairs. As students talked in pairs, she listened and provided feedback in the form of prompts. And the teacher provided scaffolding in the form of prompts. The cause doesn't always go at the beginning of the sentence. What came first, backaches or the heavy backpacks? We will bring a close to this section on developing narrative language to support Recommendation 1 in the IES Practice Guide. I'd like you to turn to page 14 in the participant handout. And here you'll just reflect on that section that we just completed. I'd like you to identify ideas confirmed for you to support explicitly engaging students in developing narrative language skills. And then, considering what you have observed from the videos, are there any changes or additions you might make to your instruction to develop narrative language skills for your students? The third piece of guidance for carrying out Recommendation 1 from the IES Practice Guide is to teach academic vocabulary in the context of other reading activities. Please turn to page 18 in the participant handout and just take a couple of quiet minutes to reflect and describe your current instructional practice for explicitly teaching academic vocabulary in the context of reading activities, and the degree to which you consider these practices to be effective. What exactly is academic vocabulary? Well, the IES Practice Guide describes academic vocabulary as consisting of words that are common in writing and other formal settings, and that students need to learn to understand written text. They include words that frequently appear in instructions for assignments and activities across subject areas. Here on the screen is an example of what explicit academic vocabulary instruction looks like in a classroom. Before reading, a second grade teacher selects academic vocabulary, including the word investigate, from a biography of Marie Curie that will be read aloud to students. The teacher develops a student-friendly definition. Investigate means to try to find out the truth about something. The teacher reads, Marie Curie decided to investigate the energy that came from a certain kind of rock called uranium. The teacher then follows up by saying, investigate means to try to find out the truth about something. So Marie Curie decided to find out the truth about the energy that came from a certain kind of rock called uranium. She wanted to investigate this energy. Is there anything that you would like to investigate? After reading the text, the teacher talks about other things that scientists investigate and then asks students to relate the word to their own experience by recording what they would like to investigate. Student responses are recorded in a graphic organizer titled Things We Want to Investigate. The teacher encourages the students to use the word investigate in their answers. And then throughout the year, the teacher makes a point to continue using the word investigate in different contexts. For example, today in math, we are going to investigate how to share things so that everyone has the same amount. The teacher also supports students in using the word investigate. For example, it sounds like you are interested in finding out about dinosaurs. Can you use our new word investigate to talk about it? The teacher corrects any incorrect uses of the word. Here are some suggestions for developing academic language in kindergarten through third grade, specifically academic vocabulary. The panel for the IES Practice Guide suggests that schools or grade level teams develop a common set of vocabulary words that align with reading selections and curriculum standards for the year. Appropriate words would be those that will occur frequently throughout the school year and in a variety of contexts, and they are likely unfamiliar to most students. The common set of words can draw on lists of academic vocabulary and common root words. The suggestion is to introduce students to academic vocabulary that is relevant in many subject areas. Each week, perhaps, select a small group of words or grammatical rules to teach that are included in text that students will hear or read. After introducing students to new words, encourage deeper understanding by providing extended opportunities for them to use and discuss the words, just like in the example that we just reviewed. Finally, ensure that students encounter new academic vocabulary words or phrases in many different contexts throughout the day and the year. We're going to get ready to visit a second grade classroom to watch an academic vocabulary lesson. Its purpose is to demonstrate how to explicitly teach academic vocabulary in the context of reading, speaking, and listening. You'll need to have page 19 in your participant handout as you are again making specific observations related to the video. And now let's watch. Please use your video viewing guide, the observations that you noted while watching that video, to have a discussion with a very small group of colleagues related to what you observed. All right, and as we bring a close to that section, which was providing guidance for us on carrying out recommendation 1 to teach students academic vocabulary, I'd like for you to think about the content and the video observed, and I'd like you to identify ideas confirmed for you to support a focus on academic vocabulary. And then considering what you observed in the video or anything that your colleagues might have contributed, are there any changes or additions you might make to your academic vocabulary instruction? So you'll have a few moments to write some notes to yourself and then be ready to share with colleagues. Now we're going to switch our focus a bit and just talk about another element of effective vocabulary instruction, which is explicit instruction of specific words. So we'll take a closer look at the attributes of this type of instruction. Now you'll want to turn to page 20 in your participant handout. And I'd like you just to have a quiet moment of reflection and consider your current instructional practices for explicit instruction of specific vocabulary words. Just go ahead and take a couple of notes and describe what that looks like. When we think about which words are worthy of explicit instruction, because we can't possibly teach all the words through explicit instruction, when we think about which words are worthy of that time, we want to consider these types of words. Words that are central to comprehension. So without knowing these words, the text just won't make sense to students. We want to consider personally valuable words. Students need these words to engage in discussion and write about text. And then we want to consider high utility academic words or academic vocabulary. These are the words that students will encounter in multiple subject areas and in life. And we just closed our section on academic vocabulary. Here's a little bit more of a precise lens to think about which words. We want to consider, is it a word whose meaning students are unlikely to know? Then it is worthy of explicit instruction. Is it a word that is generally useful and that students are likely to encounter it across a wide variety of contexts or domains? Can the meaning of the word be explained in everyday language using words and concepts that are familiar to students? And here's a biggie. What is the word's instructional potential? Is its meaning necessary for comprehension of the text being read? Do you wish for students to own that word, and so you would see them using it in their speaking and their writing? Consider the instructional potential of a word. I'd like for you to go ahead and take a couple of minutes to look through the rubric that was provided in the handouts. This rubric related to vocabulary instruction has two areas in particular that would align well with explicit instruction of chosen words. They are under the component of word instruction and under the component of actively engaging students in the development of meaning. So go ahead, take a look at the rubric, and then we'll move on in a few moments. And just a note about explicit instruction, since that term has come up a couple of times over the last few slides. Just a reminder, explicit instruction is unambiguous. It's a direct approach to teaching that incorporates instruction, design, and delivery. Explicit instruction leaves the students with no doubt about how they are to approach a task, how they are to respond, how they are to receive the information. So it is very, very direct. Vocabulary routines are a wonderful way to deliver explicit instruction of chosen words to students. Routines recognize the importance of repetition in deliberate and strategic ways to provide students with multiple, varied exposures to the words and their concepts. And because routines recognize and actually support the deliberate practice of a skill, I want to just talk about the value of practice for a moment. Studies of the repetitions needed for students to automatize new instructional tasks or elements help us to understand the importance of repetition and application. So if we look at the information on the right-hand side of the screen, most capable learners are high performers, typically just need to practice and apply something once or twice before it becomes a skill that they could utilize. Our average performers need about 4 to 12 opportunities for repetition or to practice and apply a skill before it becomes a part of their working memory and they could call it up and use it independently. Our least capable learners or our most struggling students sometimes need 20 opportunities to practice and apply a skill. And notice the plus sign there. The research varies a little bit, but it could be from 20 up to 200 opportunities to practice and apply a skill. And for some students, that number may even increase to 400. It depends on the student, it depends on the skill, but the importance here is that the number of opportunities for repetition, for practice and application is really quite high for our students who are our most struggling students. And so routines, vocabulary routine in this case that we're going to spend some time with, is very supportive of incorporating those repetitions. So let's take a look at what you have in your participant handout, pages 21 through 23. You have a series of vocabulary routines. And for our purposes in this session, we are just going to spend a little bit of time with one of the routines, but I provided a few different ones for you for your future use. The instructional routine here for teaching critical unknown vocabulary words is the first step is introduce the word. The second step is present a student-friendly definition. The third step is to illustrate the word with examples. And then the fourth step would be to check for understanding. And that can be done in a variety of ways. There are 4 options provided on this routine. Take a couple of minutes to look through the routines, pages 21 through 23 in your participant handout. Then we're going to get ready to watch a video. Please make sure you have page 24 in your participant handout ready. We are getting ready to visit a 2nd grade classroom where Anita Archer is delivering an explicit vocabulary instruction lesson. We are going to be watching for what instructional steps were used to introduce several vocabulary words to the students. And then additionally, I'd like for you to note what other just really good instructional practices do you observe in this video. And now let's watch the video.
Now, there are some words in this story that I would really like us to learn because we could use them all of the time. And this word is, let's read it by parts. The first part is con. What part, everyone? Con, and use the sound s. And the next part is sen. And the last part is trait. And say it really fast, everyone. Concentrate. One more time, everyone. Concentrate. One more time. Concentrate. Now, you remember in the story that some of the animals couldn't, what, everyone? Concentrate when the wolf was reading. Now, the word concentrate means that you are able to really think about something. You're able to put all of your attention on it. So when I really think about something and put all of my attention on it, I concentrate. What do, everyone? I concentrate. For example, if you were doing your math and you did one problem and then the next problem, and never looked up when someone came in the room, we would say that she knows how to, what, everyone? Concentrate. If you came to the library and sat down and you took out a book and you just read and read, even though he came over and she walked around you, we'd say, boy, you are able to put your thinking on it. You're able to put your attention on it. She knows how to, what, everyone? Concentrate. Get ready to tell me if this person in the pretend story knows how to concentrate. So you are reading in class and you just read and you turn the page and you read some more and you read some more and you read some more and you just keep reading. Does she know how to concentrate? Yes or no, everyone? Yes, okay? And this is pretend because it would never happen. So you start reading a page and then you look up at the clock and then you look down and then you talk over with your friends and you look back at the book. Does she know how to concentrate? Yes or no? No. She really does. That was just a pretend story. So once again, what is our word, everyone? Concentrate. Well, let's look at our next word. And the first part, everyone, is im. Next one is press. And the whole word is impressed. So you are impressed with something when you think something is really good or someone is really good. Now you remember in the story, at the beginning, they were not impressed with Wolf's reading. When I think something is really good or I think someone is really good, I am what, everyone? Impressed. I'm what, everyone? Impressed. So for example, if you turned in a story and it had a title and a main character and a problem and told me what happened in the beginning, middle, and end, I'd say, oh, that is so good. I am what, everyone? Impressed. If you did all of your math problems and you had numbers that were really neat and I could read them all, I would say, thank you. I am so impressed. All right. Now, let's just pretend here that we go off to your house and we go in your bedroom and each of us come out and we say, I'm so impressed. I'm so impressed. I'm so impressed. Now pretend that we were really impressed. Put your thumb up and as soon as you can think of why we might be impressed. Oh, I got an idea. Okay, so you're going to tell your partner why you're impressed, but you're going to start out by saying, I was impressed because. What are you going to say, everyone? I was impressed because. So first ones and twos. Tell your partner, if we went to her bedroom and we said we were impressed, why would we be impressed? Go.
I was really impressed because the room was green.
Excellent. And your idea? What would be really? Maybe she had lots of toys. So say, I was impressed because she had lots of toys. Can you say that?
Or maybe
His turn. Go ahead. Say it. Excellent. Okay, looking up here. So, using I was impressed. So, tell me your sentence. I was impressed because the room was clean. And your sentence? I was impressed because she had a lot of toys. And right here. I started out, I was impressed.
I was impressed because I know how to do math.
Okay, now we're talking about a room. I'm impressed that you know how to do math. That's excellent. But make it match the room. So we went to a room. Maybe she had lots of dolls. And you said, I am impressed because she had many dolls. Can you say that?
I was impressed because she had many dolls.
Excellent job. Well, once again, this word is what, everyone? Impressed. I am very impressed with you. Last word is educated. What word, everyone? Educated. When we learn something, particularly how to read and write, we say that then we are what, everyone? Educated. So when we come to school here and we work on learning how to read and write, we become more what, everyone? Educated. But then when we go to 3rd and 4th and 5th grade and we learn more and we get more and more knowledge, we become more what, everyone? Educated. And when you go to middle school, you're going to become more educated. When you go to high school, you're going to become more educated. When you go to college, you're going to become more educated. Excellent. Now, I'm going to tell you about one of these words. As soon as you know the word, put your thumb up. I'm thinking about a word that means that you've learned to read and write and maybe other kinds of knowledge. Put your thumb up when you know that word. And whisper to your partner the word I'm thinking about. Okay, so when you've learned to read and write, then we would say you are educated. I'm thinking of a word that means I think that something is really good. Put your thumb up when you know the word. Whisper to your partner. And the word is what, everyone? Impressed. I am thinking about a word that means you really know how to put all of your thinking and attention on something. Whisper to your partner. Excellent. And the word is what, everyone? Concentrate. Yes. Now, these are words that you could use. For example, maybe you are sitting in the library with a friend and you want to read and they're being very noisy. You could say, oh, please be quiet. I need to concentrate. Or maybe your friend writes a beautiful story and it's really a good story and you say, oh, I am impressed. Or you could go home at night and say, oh, I'm learning so much in school. I am definitely becoming educated. Excellent job. Everybody standing up. And I am so impressed with you. During the whole lesson, you were able to, what, everyone? Concentrate. Yes, you really paid attention and were thinking about what we were doing. And because you learned these new words, you are even more, what, everyone? Educated. So I want you to see if you can find a time today where you could use those words. For example, when your teacher finishes a lesson, you could go up afterward and say, oh, that was so good. I am impressed. Okay, so see if you can use some of these words today and lining up there. And thank you very much.
Okay, well, an example of explicit instruction doesn't get any better than that. You can see that Anita Archer followed the routine, and I hope that you identified really good practices outside of just her delivery of the vocabulary instruction routine. So in a moment, you will be asked to have a discussion with colleagues, just talking about the things that you noticed, the steps that she took to explicitly teach those words to students, particularly focused on the amount of repetition. So you'll have a discussion for a few moments, then we'll come back. Okay, so now turn to page 20 in your participant handout, and I'd like you to think about that section of this module, which has been focused on explicit instruction of chosen words. I'd like you to use page 20 to take a couple of notes. Go ahead and identify and discuss, identify and be prepared to discuss ideas confirmed for you about explicit instruction of specific vocabulary words. Take some time to review the vocabulary rubric and identify how explicit instruction of vocabulary words supports specific components of the rubric. And if you look at the rubric, you will see a rating of 1, 2, or 3. I'd like you to consider what might it take to receive a score of 3 in your teaching context if you were focused on explicit instruction of vocabulary words. So a couple of minutes to write notes about these questions on the screen, and then we will have an opportunity to share with colleagues. Over the next couple of slides, I offer a few resources to help leading and supporting effective vocabulary instruction. I want you to know that none of the resources are meant to be formal evaluations of teachers. They are really just meant to be a tool to support administrators and coaches in their role of working alongside teachers and having conversations and informal observations about vocabulary instruction. I would definitely encourage you to continue to spend time browsing through the IES practice guide titled Foundational Skills to Support Reading for Understanding in Kindergarten through 3rd grade. This guide provides teachers and reading coaches, principals, and any educator with instructional recommendations that can be implemented in conjunction with existing standards or curriculum, and does not recommend a particular program for the teaching of foundational skills. Teachers can use the guide when planning instruction to support the development of foundational reading skills among students in grades kindergarten through 3rd grade and in diverse contexts. Now, particularly for this module, we just looked at recommendation 1, which was focused on increasing academic language in students. And the vocabulary rubric was really designed to be a reliable resource for observation of vocabulary instructional practices to help provide specific, accurate, and actionable feedback to educators about the quality of their reading instruction and ultimately to improve the outcomes for all students, including students with disabilities. And the School Leaders Literacy Walkthrough is designed to assist school leaders in observing specific research-based practices during literacy instruction, or students' independent use or application of those practices. This tool is based on rigorous research that indicates the most effective way to teach reading. And it is typically aligned to state standards. This tool is not meant to be used in the evaluation of teachers. Instead, it is really a resource that is intended to help school leaders enhance their literacy instruction knowledge, communicate with teachers their expectations regarding literacy content and instructional strategies. Further, the use of this tool can be the basis of productive communication and collaboration among school leaders and teachers, and inform professional learning needs to improve student achievement in literacy. Well, we have reached the end, and I want to thank you for your dedication, your hard work, your focus, and your important conversations with colleagues. It has been my honor to develop and guide you through this module focused on a couple of elements for vocabulary instruction. We know there are many more elements to vocabulary instruction. Today, for this module, we focused on the development of academic language skills and the importance of that as it is identified as a strong recommendation in the IES practice guide. And then additionally, we spent time on explicit instruction of specific vocabulary words. So I hope that you found this module to be of benefit to you. And again, I truly, truly enjoyed providing this opportunity for you.